as I've stated before, 2021 was a very forgettable year in cinema, but it was not without its good films. And I am here today to construct my 10 favorite films of 2021. I don't have any honorable mentions. I think people overdo it with the honorable mentions sometimes. Like, to me, an honorable mention is a movie that was good enough to be on the list, but just missed. I had many in my worst of. I saw exactly 10 movies this year that I felt like were good enough to be on a top 10 list. So no honorable mentions. We're going to jump right into this list with my number 10 favorite movie of 2021, and that is Kenneth Branagh's Belfast. The one thing I'll say about this movie negatively is I feel like I should have liked it more. It's a very human story. It's made very honestly by Kenneth Branagh. There's just some issues I had with it, tonally especially, where I felt like it fell a little bit short, but it's a very well-made film, beautifully shot, great performances all around, and it's honest. And I think pretty much every film in this list that has kind of a similar vibe to it, where everyone feels very sincere with its filmmaking, and this is no exception. It's a film I absolutely recommend. It's my number 10 favorite of the year. Number 9, this was a surprise, but my number 9 is Pig with Nicolas Cage. When you watch the trailer for this, you kind of roll your eyes because it's Nicolas Cage going for it again, walking around going, I'm looking for a truffle pig. But when you watch the movie, you realize it's actually a very deep, very moving, very cathartic film about grief, about loss. And I'll just say it, I think Nick Cage deserves an Oscar nomination. He won't get one, but this is the best he's been maybe in 2 decades. I mean, this is a really brilliant performance by him, and it looks like he's starting to get back into mainstream cinema. And I think that's awesome because he's done some of his best work over the last few years. Number 8 is Val. This is easily the best documentary of the year about the life and times of Val Kilmer as told through his eyes. I feel like this could have come across as very selfish, and it never did. It's self-reflective, it's honest, it's human. I often don't have a ton to say about documentaries. They're either good or they're not, and while I would say that I don't like this the way that I loved Class Action Park, which was one of my favorite movies of last year, I will acknowledge that this is an excellent documentary that I believe everyone should see, even though it featured an ending that I felt like was a little bit hollow. It's a very good film. Number 7 is Worth, which is far and away the most underrated movie of 2021. Nobody saw this, and I'm not quite sure why. It features a phenomenal story and many famous actors all giving excellent performances, and yeah, it just got dumped on Netflix in September with very little buzz, but I thought this was a solid film. It had trouble sticking the landing, but I think that this is a movie that more people deserve to see. It's human, and it's not overly preachy. It tells its story, and while I had a few problems with it, I thought it was really good. It's a very underappreciated film that I believe more people should see. Number 6 is Free Guy. This movie just makes me happy. There's something about a film that is so optimistic with its story. I think the comedy works, and a few jokes fall flat, but I found the movie quite funny in general. Ryan Reynolds is always funny as hell, but what pushed this over the top was the fact that its message resonated with me in a way that I really did not expect that it would. It's by no means a deep film, but the message of branching out and creating your own path is something that I always relate to. And while creativity is not a guarantee of a movie's success, I do believe that it's vital that people see this movie. I'm really happy that it did well at the box office because it's an entirely original concept with original characters. It isn't based on some pre-established IP. It's not a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's not a remake. It's its own thing, and it works. It's one of my favorite movies of 2021. Number 5 is Tick, Tick, Boom. This film would probably be just an above-average musical if not for its remarkable lead performance by Andrew Garfield. He had such a great year in 2021. I'm very happy for him. As the late Jonathan Larson, his performance is vulnerable, it's layered, and it's charismatic as hell. This movie is well directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is behind the camera for this picture. Again, this is another film that was so close to being great, but couldn't quite get across the finish line. With that said, it's very entertaining, and it has some really fun musical numbers, and it features one of the best performances of the year by Andrew Garfield. It's a tough movie to dislike because its heart is so clearly in the right place. Number 4 is Spider-Man No Way Home. I think there are legitimate problems with this movie, and I do not put it in that upper tier of Marvel films. I think one of the complaints I have is that this is more of an event than it is a movie. But with that said, as events go, it's so much fun. The characters are so rich. It is amazing that this movie exists, and it's even more impressive that it works as well as it does. You can just tell that so much love was put into the making of this thing. The third act with all of spoiler alert. with all these Spider-Men coming together. It was a dream come true. I think Marvel has mastered the art of fan service, and they've mastered the art of very sincere blockbuster filmmaking. When you have somebody like Kevin Feige who's in charge, you feel the love with every shot, and all the returning actors are so great. Nobody feels like they're phoning it in at all, and all the parts of this movie that we wanted to see, all the parts of this movie that we desperately wanted to work, they all work. It really nails it. This is a movie that sticks the landing. It makes for a one in a million film experience that I think pretty much everyone who has seen has enjoyed, and I'm one of them. It's my number 4 favorite of the year. Number 3 is King Richard, one of the better sports movies in a long time. Will Smith is excellent in this. I will be surprised if he doesn't end up winning the Oscar. I think that he carries so much of this movie, but the story itself is terrific, and as I said in my review, you can't knock the film for being cliched when the cliches happen in real life. The Williams sisters and their story is a story that deserves to be put on film. It's greater than fiction, and this movie does a great job of capturing the remarkable story that is the Williams sisters. It's told through the eyes of Richard Williams, and Will Smith just knocks it out of the park. I don't think there's a human being alive who could come out of this movie and not feel good. It's an upbeat, optimistic film, and it features one of the biggest movie stars of all time giving quite possibly the best performance of his career. Much like Free Guy, this is a movie that just makes you happy. It's one of the best films of the year. Number 2, and this is going to be the controversial one, but my number 2 is Don't Look Up. I said this on Lights Camera Barstool, but sometimes you just gel with a movie. As preachy as it is, every point Adam McKay made about society, about the political climate, and news media was something that I completely accepted and completely related to. I know that this has been a divisive movie, but I love this film as much as I love any comedy that I've seen in the last 8-9 years. I think This Is the End was the last time I saw a comedy that made me laugh as much as this one does, which ironically also featured Jonah Hill. It's a movie that has something to say. It has an actual message, which so many movies don't anymore. I believe that 5 years from now, this will be a movie that people are going to look back on and they'll view it through a different lens. Maybe it just dropped at the wrong time, but I completely adore this. As I said in my review, it redeemed 2021 as a year for me because this was such a surprise. I've seen this movie twice. I'm going to watch it many more times over the next several years. It's one of those few comedies that gets everything right. And I know that my opinion is in a tiny minority, but this is one of those instances in which I don't care. I love this thing. And my favorite movie of 2021, and if you know me and you've been watching my reviews for a while, you know what this is. My number 1 film of 2021 is West Side Story. It's almost unfair to put this at number 1 because as I stated in my review and as I've said many times over, both on social media and on podcasts, this movie exists on a plane that is just separate from all other films that I saw this year. This movie is built different. It makes me so sad that nobody saw it. This movie bombed horribly, and I think they made a huge mistake not putting it on streaming. That's a conversation for another day, but I think that from a stylistic standpoint, this is a top 5 Steven Spielberg movie. The cast is amazing. There are a million ways in which this thing could have muddied its waters, and it never did. It's a clean, pure diamond of a movie, and it has some flaws. You know, for instance, I think the romance in the original was a little bit more powerful than it was here, but still, even the marks against it are generally pretty forgivable because every shot in this movie has a purpose. The framing, the camera work, the shot composition. It's a prime example of an all-time great director at the absolute top of his game. Is this movie as good as the 1961 original? I don't know. It's apples and oranges because the original is a perfect film for 1961, and I believe that this film is a perfect film for 2021. They updated it in a way that also allowed them to stay true to the original source material. Also, little sidebar here, and Riff in West Side Story is one of my favorite characters in all of fiction, but Mike Faist as Riff gave my favorite performance of the year by any actor. I thought he was magnetic, and don't get me wrong, there's some amazing performances in this movie. Rachel Zegler is a perfect Maria. Ariana DeBose may very well win Best Supporting Actress for her performance as Anita, but man, Mike Faist knocked it out of the park. All these actors are great, even the ones people criticized. Like, I thought Ansel Elgort was fine. Everyone in this is great. It's a movie to me that I wish more people would have seen. And I'm going to get preachy here, but like, don't complain when we get more Venom Let There Be Carnages. Don't complain when we get more musics. Don't complain when we get more Olds or Woman in the Windows. Because this is a movie while it is a remake, it's an actual film. And it's creative and it's made with passion and sincerity by one of the great directors of all time. And nobody saw it. So keep shoving popcorn in your face and wonder why we don't get honest, creative Hollywood films. All right. End of sidebar. End of rant. That'll do it for this video. You can follow me on Twitter at Castellani2014. While we're at it, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get those watch hours up. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Peace and happiness.